Hello guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be a pros and cons of living in a studio apartment video. If you're interested in that, then please keep on watching. So just as a disclaimer, these are in no particular order, they're just random. So I'm just going to be firing them off and you can jot down notes if you wish. And here we go. So here are the pros. It is so easy and fast to clean. When I first moved here, I was used to living in other places that weren't this small. So when I think of cleaning day, it's like, okay, well, that's gonna take a whole day or that's gonna take at least a couple hours. But once I lived in a studio apartment, I was like, oh, I gotta dedicate a whole day to cleaning. And then it ended up taking like maybe half an hour to do everything. Because it's such a small space, sweeping the floor is essentially like sweeping one room. The next pro I can think of is that it forces you to be a minimalist. There's so many times I've wanted to buy random things, especially random cute plushies, like this boy here, my son. I remember to myself, okay, I live in a studio, so that's just not gonna fit. I just don't have room for that. And it saves me money, and it really does force you to only buy what is necessary. And honestly, in a way, I do think that we should all be striving to live like that. There's just so much consumerism. So if you live in a small space, it forces you to be extremely intentional and minimalist in how you live and what you buy. Another pro is that it gives off this airy and open concept vibe. Even if it's tiny, like my condo is only 499 square feet, it's tiny. However, because there's no dividing walls or doors or anything like that, it gives off the feeling like you're living in one of those super modern, open concept lofts, even though it's not. So if you like open concept and you don't like the idea of a bunch of little rooms, or if you're someone who's really tall, then sometimes it gives you a more airy feeling, which some people would like. Another huge pro is if there's ever some, God forbid, dangerous situation like a kitchen fire, you will know right away because you're technically always in the kitchen. Because your apartment is just one room, even if you're reading in bed, or you're at your desk working, or you're watching TV, you're always in one room, so you always have front row seat to what is happening in your kitchen at all times. So if something's on fire, you will know. If something is burning, you will know because you can smell it. This next one is probably one of the biggest pros of living in a studio apartment. And that is that it is significantly cheaper typically than living in just a one-bedroom apartment. I noticed that a lot of the apartments that are literally the same square footage and everything as my condo, but they just have a bedroom, are like hundreds of dollars more, significantly more expensive, just to have the privacy of a bedroom or just the ability to call it a one bedroom versus studio. So as long as you don't care that much that you don't have a wall and door essentially, you save on hundreds a month, and that adds up by the end of the year. Another pro is if you're the type of person that tends to forget something when they leave the house, like, oh, I forgot my keys, or oh, I forgot my phone. A great thing about living in a studio is because it's so open and small, you take one quick scan and you can see everything, and that saved me so many times where I'm like, oh, my sweater, my water bottle, because everything is there. You don't have to run up the stairs or sift through different rooms or open different doors and dig around. Everything is open and there, so it makes everything just very efficient. Another pro is there tends to be a lot of sunlight in a studio apartment because typically one of your walls is a window. In my case, it's a massive, massive window with sliding doors. So there's so much natural light that comes in. You definitely get a lot of vitamin D, and this is probably like the most tanned I've ever been in my life because I'm just constantly, catching those sun rays, even when I'm just chilling in here. Another big pro is a studio apartment is cozy AF. So obviously the sound of a mansion is glamorous, but there definitely is something to be said about the idea of like 17 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms, and just marble floors everywhere and everything is cold. Well, a studio apartment is the opposite of that. It's so tiny that even if everything was marble and gold or something, it would still feel cozy because it's just so small. It's like a nest or a nook, you know? Think of like a little bunny burrowing like underneath a tree or something. Just, it's really, really cozy. And speaking of cozy, it also stays relatively warm. I find it never gets too freezing cold compared to living in a house because once again, it's just such a small space that it stays incubated and warm. So if you're someone like me who is perpetually cold and loves feeling cozy, then a studio might be for you. Another pro is if you like reorganizing your space a lot, you will love living in a studio apartment. Because there's no walls or any sort of obstructions in the structure, it's just your playground to do whatever you want to do with it. I've done probably at least 10 different styles of organizing my space since living here. If you like change and you like switching it up and having it be very easy and accessible to do so, then you might like living in a studio as well. Another pro is it forces you to get out of the house more. So if you're someone that's been saying, oh, I need more vitamin D, or I need to exercise more, or I need to see my friends more, because a studio is a little bit claustrophobic and samey because it's just the one room, it forces you to spend more time outside than ever. I find myself taking so many walks or just forcing myself to check my mailbox just to get out of the house. And in that, I've like made so many more friends and just been so much more social. So if you're looking to get out of your shell or just get more light and just be one with nature more, then a studio does encourage that as well. Another pro, utilities are much cheaper as well as the rent because the space is so much smaller. So for example, heat and electricity, it's just so much less space to heat up or cool down. And also on the note of that, if you do have to cool down the place, I find the minute I turn on the AC, it's cool within, honestly, like 5 minutes, maybe even seconds. So that's about all the pros I could think of for living in a studio apartment. Now let's move on to some of the cons. If you are someone that has a lot of trouble paring down your items, honestly, studio apartment life is not for you. It just really forces you to be minimal. So if you are like me and you are naturally a little bit more minimal in general, it wasn't too much of a change for me. But if you struggle a lot with that, then it's going to be stressful for you, at least in the beginning. Another con is lack of privacy. Because there's no walls, you always feel like you're on display, especially because one of my walls is just a massive glass window, and the building across from me is pretty close, like closer than average. When people are on their balcony or looking out their windows, they can completely see everything that I'm doing. So unless my blinds are completely closed, I always feel like a zoo animal on display, like in a cage, and people are just constantly peering in at me. I know that sounds really creepy, but it is. No, but seriously, like it's something I definitely had to get used to. Sometimes if you have guests over and you're hosting friends and you guys are just hanging out in the kitchen, your friends are also in your bedroom because your bed is right there. There's just no sense of like division in the rooms or privacy whatsoever. Another con is unless you keep your place spotless all the time, it is very easy for it to look messy quicker than if there were bedrooms. So let's say you have a 1-bedroom apartment and there's some clothes all over your floor in your bedroom, but you have friends coming over. You can just shut the door and be like, sorry guys, I didn't clean my room, so we're not gonna go in there. Done. When you live in a studio, once again, there is no bedroom or locking something away. Everything is on display at all times. So if there is clothes on the floor, it's not just clothes on the floor as a messy bedroom. Your whole apartment just looks like a mess now because again, it's now in your kitchen technically too. Another huge con, in my opinion, maybe even one of the biggest ones, is noise. So I personally am a pretty light sleeper, but when you live in a studio, it can get really, really loud because once again, you don't have that extra room and a door to separate the noise. So if people are listening to music, partying, or even talking really loudly in the apartment hallways, it just echoes right through your apartment, and it's amplified and echoey, and it's just awful. Another con, as I kind of mentioned in the pros, is that everything you buy must be either aesthetically pleasing or multifunctional, because it must serve a purpose, or else there's no place to hide it. There's no like giant closet or storage room. I mean, mine technically does have a pretty generous closet, but of course I have to put my essential things in there. So in terms of like a place to put like collectibles or like stuff, like for example, I actually am a doll collector, and I have a separate channel called Anita Doll if you want to check it out. But it's very hard to know where to display my more like fun stuff, I guess, like dolls, figurines, collectibles, because there is only one room. And also with the multifunctional thing, yeah, so for example, my dinner table is actually a desk, so I double it as an L-shaped desk sometimes. Sometimes I put it away completely. The chairs I use are very lightweight, cheap, and plastic, so I also double those as patio chairs when guests come over and they want to sit on the patio. My desk is collapsible, so when I'm not using it, I just take it apart. The Alex drawer on the side of it can attach to my vanity if I need it to. Just everything in your apartment has to have at least one use. If it doesn't even have one use and it's just like a pretty giant vase or something, it's just, you know, like you only have so much room, so you have to absolutely prioritize things that you need and things that really matter, or else you're just taking up and wasting room. Another con is boredom. Because there's no room separation, you feel like you're kind of just always in the same scenery, and you can get very tired of it easily. And a lot of articles say you shouldn't work in the same place that you sleep and the same place that you eat. But if you live in a studio apartment, that is literally your life. You have no choice. There only is one room unless you want to go on the balcony for a bit, which I have done sometimes in desperate times, just to feel some semblance of separation and difference. And the last con I could think of is smells. So if your neighbors are smoking, or like something died in their apartment or something, you can smell everything. Smells just linger. And even your own smells. Like for example, if I make popcorn and I've eaten it all, it was delicious, and then an hour later, I'm like, man, I can still smell the popcorn from my bedroom, because my bedroom is my kitchen. But then you have no popcorn left, so you're like, now I'm just wanting popcorn and the smell won't go away. Or if someone comes over and uses your bathroom, your whole apartment is going to smell. It's just, yeah, you just have to keep in mind that it's like a tiny, tiny space where everything is just everywhere all at once. Amazing movie, by the way. I have lived in a studio apartment for about a year and 9 months now, and yeah, I personally love it. It works for me, but I don't think I could live like this forever. It's very much a shorter term thing for people in their like 20s that are just working, or their early 30s, and you want to live in a good location, because typically studios are placed, you know, right smack in the middle of the city, that are close and accessible to a lot of transit and a lot of like trendier areas. So if you've always wanted to live in the city but you can't really afford it, then a studio is a great option to do that. I can admit that it's definitely not for everyone. I've had a lot of my friends come over and say, I don't know how you live like this. You have to be so intentional and so nitpicky about everything in order to make it work. And they're 100% right, you do. So it's not for everyone, but based on the things that I mentioned in this video, if you can relate to any of them, then you'll decide whether it's for you or not. But I hope this video was helpful and entertaining. If this video was helpful to you in any way, then please give it a thumbs up. Also, please subscribe to my channel. It would truly, truly mean the world to me to have you join my little cozy corner here on YouTube. So thank you guys so much for watching this pros and cons of living in a studio apartment video. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care.